Good evening and welcome to the Large and Unnecessary First Player Token episode 76. My name is Euan.
Is this the vampire edition, Euan?
I started and I couldn't stop.
No, this was fantastic.
I think you did a similar intro in our Cold War special.
I think I did. Yeah, except I was trying to be like, what, the Jewish vampire thing.
Yeah.
I was genuinely impressed.
Oh, my boys, I'm going to suck your blood.
I think you should carry on.
Well, I don't even know where I was going with that.
I think we were going to say this is a video game episode.
I was trying to ramp up the energy because Chris is a little bit tired.
I'm a bit tired and I'm recovering from a cold.
And Pawel's just Pawel.
Yeah,
Dave,
he certainly is.
I can hardly cope with that.
Dave is also here.
And you're Euan the vampire.
Yes.
Yeah, so welcome to the episode.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about video games today because we don't play a lot of board games anymore.
That was a bit sad.
I know.
That was a bit sad, actually.
Did you hear the
We're trying, all right?
There was
desperation in my voice.
There was some discussion on one of the other podcasts as to whether we
count.
Well, they'd heard they do follow us because they heard that we were not ramping down, but reducing the amount of board game content. So
Were they disappointed as well?
There was some discussion as to do we still count as a board game podcast?
Oh, please, lads, don't excommunicate us. It's nice to be part of the network of Scottish podcasts about any kind of gaming.
We're just pretending. Just trying to jump on your board gaming bandwagon.
So we'll do an episode about Risk
Anyway,
next
they
week.
can shut up because they keep getting our names wrong all the time, so I don't care about their opinions anymore.
I kind of like the idea of us being the first person initiative.
The first initiative role podcast. Anyway, yeah, we're here to talk about video games, as Euan said. So, in fact, I've not got the energy really to sit and have any long discussions here, so I'm just going to let Dave start talking.
Hooray!
So, Dave, tell us about your Valentine's Day special video gaming session.
Yeah, it was Valentine's Day last week, and to celebrate that, I played a little bit of Roguemance, the romantic roguelike.
This sounds like an interesting subgenre.
Is that the actual tagline?
No.
Or you just put that on there yourself?
Put that on. I don't know what the tagline is. I saw it come up on Steam. I was like, this will do. I need to play. I need to play a game to talk about
Everybody's
this week.
favourite criteria for playing a game.
No, it generally looked kind of interesting. It's very much an indie game. It's an indie game in the truest sense, in that it's one person. I think it may have even stemmed from a day at a games jam or something like that, a little idea that they had, and they made a game out of it, and they're not going to spend their entire life devoted to this game. He's made it, he's barred it out onto Steam, he's moving on, I think.
It's probably good for him.
So, yeah, I mean, that's the way to do it, I think. Not spending, 5 years of your life talking to nerds on the discussion forum on Steam, bitching about your game, telling you how it has to be like every fucking other game that they've played in their life.
I'll be talking about Streets of Rogue again next week.
It's like, when are we getting pets? There needs to be more. When are we getting mounts? There needs to be more crafting. There's not enough crafting in this game.
When the epic mounts appear.
Yeah.
There's none of that in Roguemance. It's just about love. It's very pixely, as you could probably guess. It's not especially roguey either, as you might determine from a description of it. You choose a little character, you choose your haircut, and your clothes, and your class as well. You can be a warrior or a mage or a thief, I think. And you get plonked onto this weird pixie-looking world. It's a road. You can only go in one direction. You can only go to the right, possibly harking back to the days of Super Mario there. And you wander along and you encounter enemies to fight. you go into this weird battle thing, and you have 4 things you can choose from, which is determined by your class. So there's like 4 actions. It's turn-based, and they're on like a little wheel, and they're things like chuck a sword, or jump, or blow a kiss. That's one of the more romantic options. And you choose one of them, and the enemies have a little wheel as well, and you can see their wheel goes round in order. You can choose yours, so you can see what they're going to do each turn. So you plan your moves accordingly. Once you've taken one move, you can't use it until you've used all of the others, and then you get them all back again. It's a bit like having a hand of 4 cards, except it's on a wee wheel thing.
It's a very board gamey.
It is a little bit. It's totally weird. It's a weird idea for a game. But the reason it's like this is because after you've fought a few monsters, you encounter a little companion, which you buy with money, which is a bit weird. And they're your like romantic interest. And they
you buy with money.
Well, you have to pay to go to the... I think it's like you go to like a tavern, it's meant to be.
I don't think this is what romance is supposed to be about.
Yeah, well, who's to say? Like,
not that I'm judging, but,
Perhaps you're buying their freedom.
Don't be telling other people how to live their
I
romantic
suppose
lives.
if you're playing a solo game on Valentine's Day, you might as well buy romance.
If I want to pay for love, I don't want to be judged by it.
So the game is liberating in a way.
That's what Gary Glitter said.
So you get another partner. They have a little wheel, and theirs goes round in order as well. And so you coordinate your moves with your other little partner.
That does sound like a romance.
You can do things like the kisses for healing, so you can like blow kisses to each other. But you have to be careful because there's multiple monsters, and you have to look at what's going to happen. And it can be, if you get it wrong, you might end up healing the monster accidentally, because everybody's like jumping up in the air, and then like when you jump, you stay up in the air until the next turn when you come back down again. And so it's slightly chaotic, but if you spend enough time, because there's no timer, so if you spend enough time looking at it, unless you're an idiot like I am, I did get it wrong all the time, and like people were complaining in the reviews that it's too easy. I'm terrible at this game. Yeah, and that's what you do. I mean, after every battle, your partner has like a little personality. You can decide whether to show mercy to the people you've just fought, or to destroy them for money. And your partner may have an opinion on which of these two you should do. And if you do the opposite of what they want, then you sort of fall out of love with them a little bit. But if you go along with their wishes, you become more in love. And the same when you go down the road, they're like, let's go this way, and you're like, oh, okay, I guess, darling. Yes, dear. Sorry.
But there's just one way you said. Just
no, there's like little branches. It's always to the right, but there's sort of like branches on the road. Right. But it's just like an option. You get a choice of 3 things to choose from for what you're going to do next. And you can have multiple companions, and they'll want to go different ways, and so you can often please one of them. That's it. There's bosses.
Sorry, so you can have multiple romance options, but you can only please one of them at the same time?
Well, quite often they want different things, so...
That's hopefully realistic.
The others just naff off if you...
If they're unhappy enough, they will leave. Yeah, I mean, does it sound amazing?
It sounds quite interesting.
It's quite novelty, actually.
Can it educate gamers in what love is?
Yeah.
I don't think anything...
Have you ever met gamers, Pathel?
It's that thing where the robot's head explodes.
I mean, it's an odd game. It's just odd. There's something in there. It's not amazing. You can play co-op, because I played it myself and I was like, maybe I'm missing something here. Maybe co-op is where the fun is. So I got my girlfriend over specifically so we could play this game.
Was it on Valentine's Day?
No, sadly not. That would have been, ideally it would have been, but no. Yeah, we played co-op. It's just as dumb. In fact, it's even dumber in co-op because you control a character each. So now you have control of both of them, like the partner and yourself. So you can just choose your actions with impunity, coordinate. Right. I thought it was stupid, but then my girlfriend loved it. She thought it was great. She said we should play it again. This is a common theme. Quite often we play games and I'm like, this is the dumbest game ever. And she's like, oh, I quite like it. Yeah, so that's Romance. I mean, it was cute. Blow kisses to each other. It was kind of nice.
And a monster jumps in the way of the kiss.
Yeah,
I like that idea.
Yeah, and then you end up healing it. And you're like, ah, thwarted again.
This sounds like how Pawel spends his weekends.
I did heal a number of monsters over the weekend. Yes, it was a quest, and Elder Scrolls Online. But in general, I try not to heal monsters because there is no exps in that.
Exp. You do know that's short for experience, pal.
What? I probably knew it before I knew English.
Yeah, probably, actually, yeah.
Meaning has been lost.
Pawel's first word. X.
The language of RPG.
He was just telling us earlier on about how he used to read the Spider-Man comics.
Spider-Man, yes. There's all sorts of mistakes. There's all sorts of mistakes you make when you pick up a Spider-Man comic book.
Peter Parker, Spider-Man.
But I was sitting there thinking, is that what they called the Flash in Poland?
Spider-Man. He takes a lot of speed and he drives a bus.
I've just now realised how it sounds. Okay, thank you.
I needed that.
That pepped you up a bit.
Right, Dave, thanks very much.
Yep. What's the chat on? So who's that by?
Roguemans, Lucas Molina, February 14th, 2018. Good job, Lucas.
Well done on finishing it and moving on.
Yeah. Move on. Don't look back.
Yeah, let's move on.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go next. I've not got too much to say this week, but I spent a chunky time playing more Monster Hunter World. I've not had a lot of time to play anything else. I did actually have a quick go at Rime, Rime.
Oh,
It became free on the
Yeah.
PlayStation Plus this month, I think.
I think
it was.
I did to like it.
I played a little bit of that. I would like to play a bit more before I actually talk about it, but that's a gorgeous game. Like, everything I've seen so far in that game is really, really cool.
Is it an adventure game?
It's like a sort of puzzle platformy type thing.
Is it not like a spiritual successor to Myst or something, or am I getting that confused with something else? I'm sure there was like a recent
honestly, I really don't know the backstory behind
update
this
to the
game,
Myst
but it really reminded me of Journey.
All right.
I tend to associate it with Myst in my head as well, but it might be
worth.
But the
looking
graphics
up.
are
Yeah.
like.
So I mean, it's a gorgeous game, but I like. I've played a little bit of it. It's just a classic puzzle game, basically puzzle platforming type game. But sort of really slow paced and stuff. But I'll maybe talk about that next week actually, because I would quite like to finish playing that. I get the impression it's not particularly long, but we'll see. But yeah, Monster Hunter World. After we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, and I think one of the things that we were talking about was that Dave, the multiplayer in all the Monster Hunter games that have had it has just been an absolute nightmare. We've figured out how it works. And it is just feels really clumsy, and just like I don't understand what they've done and why. So you have to post quests on a board, and there is like a big board in this hub area. In fact, there's 2 or 3 of them that you can go up to, and you can post the quest, and anybody that's in the server that you're in can join in on that quest, as long as you've set the number of players to hold more than one person, basically. And they will jump in, they can jump into the quest with you. However, they can't join you until after you've watched all the cutscenes for a particular quest, if it's a story quest, which is really strange.
Right.
Okay, so when you go in, even if you set the player limit to 4, if there's cutscenes to watch in that quest, it'll come up and say 1 out of 1 player. So it doesn't say 1 out of 4 players, it says 1 out of 1, and you have to go in and if you are playing with your friends and you're playing through the story quest, you basically all three, however many people, I've been playing with 2 other people, so all 3 of us have had to go and start the quest solo, watch the cutscenes, and then you might have to run through a bit of the actual bit of the game before you get to the cutscenes, and then 2 people have to then quit the quest, go back to the main hub, and then join the other player.
Stuff take me ages to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, it was just we were sitting there going, why does it say 1 out of 1? And then it would say, the leader hasn't watched the cutscenes, and you're like, what the... So then there's no easy way of joining somebody once you're in a quest. You can't just like go into a menu and say join this player. You have to go back to the hub and then go to the board and then join the quest through the board and then go back. And we've had some sort of things where, like, let's say I'm the one that they're joining, so they've quit, but meanwhile, while they're going through all the loading screens and everything, I'm fighting some massive monster, and by the time they get to me, like, this monster's already half dead because I've beat the crap out of it and I'm in one-player mode still. Because the monsters only scale up. I've heard there's only 2 levels to the monsters. There's you're fighting it on your own, or you're fighting it with other people. And it's to do with the cat things, the palicos. Because if you're fighting on your own, you've got your little cat guy with you, who heals you. He will hit the monster. He'll do a bunch of things. They're actually really cool. They're really useful. They're one of my favourite things about this game, actually. These the palicos. But if somebody else joins in with you, they bring their cat, so you've got 4. But then if another person joins in, all the cats disappear. So then there's 3 people. And again, if another person joins in, it's still no cats and 4 people. So it seems that the only scaling is basically you're fighting it alone with your cat, or you're fighting it with other people and cats or other people, if you see what I mean. So there's two different difficulties to the monsters apparently. So it seems that if you're fighting with 3 people, you're actually putting yourself at a disadvantage. But
I think from what I read, I don't take what I say as gospel because I haven't played a lot of the game, but I read something about the scaling as well is kind of just based on HP.
I think it is. Yeah, I think the monsters
essentially they just take longer to kill.
They just take longer to kill. Yeah, but you're doing more damage to them.
Oh right.
Because there's more of you. But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with this game. Like it's really addictive. Even though I've gone through and I've fought the same monsters over and over and over again, it's still just a lot of fun. Just like standing there, like battering the crap out of some massive winged dragon-like thing. Yeah. And there's a lot of sort of grinding. There's like the amount of different armor and like weapon upgrades. I didn't realise, like when I saw that first page of weapon upgrades, I thought that was going to be it, and it turns out that the more you play through the story quests, the bigger that list gets, and it just goes on and on and on. I've got a new favourite weapon compared to what I had the last time. I've started using the gun lance a hell of a lot. I've upgraded it massively. It's like there's so many little things in this game that like just make me enjoy it every time I play it. Like new items that you find and stuff, new things that you can craft, start making barrel bombs and things like that. Realising that there's like bags of stones and stuff like littered about the place that you can shoot on top of a monster's head, and just lots of little things about Monster Hunter World that I'm just really, really enjoying. And I can see this. This has just become my go-to game. When I turn on my PlayStation, it's just like straight into Monster Hunter World. I'll go and do a couple of things. Go and grind for some materials, or I'll go and fight this monster in this other story quest or whatever. And yeah, I can see me playing this for some time to come. You had a quick go of it.
A quick one. I kind of just went through, did the first hunt, and I can see what you mean about it. Because it is the whole notion of like you're crafting for specific hunts, and you're kind of like what weapons you take and what kind of armor you take. It's not about just upgrading everything. It's about sort of looking at that and sort of tracking, so you get that feeling of actual hunting, even in what is kind of essentially kind of an RPG style setup. It seems quite interesting. I just personally find it a bit daunting with the sheer amount of stuff you're hit with from the get-go. And like you were saying about the hub area is just too big. And it seems needlessly big. It looks great, it looks beautiful, but I just found it to be... It's
actually not. Because, the thing is, if you spend all your time running up and down the stairs and things like that, it will feel big.
You showed me the shortcut, and I was using those, but even then, I still felt, because I was getting a lot... I mean, I suppose you get used to it.
Aye. There's actually only two areas in the hub that you really need to go to. One's like the bottom floor, and that's where there's a quest board there. There's a box there with all your items in it that you can trade out all your stuff. There's bounties, the people that give you all the bounties and stuff. All these things are all right next to each other in this area. There's a person where you can go and get information about the different monsters you've fought, so you can go and learn about their strengths and weaknesses. And then there's also an area where you're growing stuff, but that comes later in the game.
Right.
So like you can start growing your own like different types of mushrooms and stuff like that. So they're just items for your box basically. And the other area is the workshop where you upgrade your stuff.
Yeah.
And those are the only two. You'll spend a lot of time just going between those two areas, I think.
Right.
But like I say, all those things are all right next to each other. And once you learn what each thing is and what it's for, you'll find that you're not going anywhere else really.
Yeah, I figured that would be the case. I just found it a bit frustrating on my first play of it. But there's probably a bit of a learning curve with that game. I definitely chose the wrong stuff for that first hunt, and I should have known as well what I was going to be hunting, because you're introduced to these weird lizard things as you go into the first map, and it's should be obvious that's what you're going to go and fight straight away. And I tried to take this big heavy machine gun thing to try and kill those, which was just the worst possible thing I could have done. But yeah, I guess it's
well, the thing is, I made the same mistake. I picked a weapon that just that I thought was going to be amazing, like the switchblade thing, the massive sword that can morph into an axe. And I just after a while I was like, this is not the weapon for me. It's really not. And then I switched to the gun lance, which kind of feels a wee bit similar. It's got the same big shield and things, but it's just got a little bit more me to it.
Okay. Yeah, that is. I mean, they just seem to think there was a bit of personality to the weapons.
Oh, definitely. Aye.
Are there more weapons that appear further on in the game, or is that not something or not? Or is that list pretty much?
I think that list is pretty much fixed,
yeah.
And it's really just little differences between them. So they might have different status effects that they'll apply, and obviously they'll have different attack values and all these things. But there's also there's a bunches of different stats in this game that they don't tell you anything about. They don't tell you how it works, right? And there's something called affinity, which is really, it's just a totally abstract thing. It's well, what does that mean? Because it's a percentage number as well. So if you've got something that's affinity 10% and it's it's positive.
Very Dark Souls when you get in that.
That is very similar to that. Aye, yeah. And the affinity number is just to do with how often I think you'll get more damage or something like that. It's something weird. I looked it up and I was just right, well, definitely then positive affinity is a good thing, and negative affinity isn't. It's really how I boiled it down to, because I'm not one of those people that goes into ridiculous depths with the crunching the numbers and stuff. I'm just green is good, red is bad.
Best to keep it simple.
Yeah.
All right.
But there is another thing in that I found. Because there's so much armour, and because every story quest introduces you basically to a new type of monster, and there's so much armour that you can make out of these different types of monsters, that eventually just going through 8, 9 of the story quests, you then end up with a massive list of different types of armour that you can make. And you have to try and make decisions about when you actually upgrade it, when you change the suit of armour you're wearing and stuff, because you could just spend the entire game grinding every time you find a new set of armour, a new monster that you can make a set of armour out of. Go and kill that monster multiple times until you can make this new suit of armour, and then move on to the next one. But I've not got the time for that, so I'm having a little bit of so when do I actually stop wearing this armour and move on to the next tier sort of thing. But I mean, what I like about the game is that it leaves it entirely up to you what you do. There is no there's nothing that pushes you through the story quests. You can just stop and take a break and go and grind like hell for a while. So yeah, this is why it's become my go-to game, because basically I don't have to turn it on and then go through multiple cutscenes of story quests and stuff like that. I can just go in and just fight a massive monster just for fun if I want to, and then that's my half an hour done of gaming for that night or whatever, and off I go. But I'm going to keep playing it. Absolutely loving it so far. Pawel, you should pick it up.
I've spent 3 minutes, potentially 4 minutes, attempting to play it, and those huge weapons just scared me away. Just not my kind of aesthetics, I would say. Nah.
Did you not like the Souls games?
They at least attempt to look like oversized versions of what you would expect medieval weapons to be like. But when I played Bloodborne, I really had to shut my eyes in order to tolerate the big razor thing and stuff like that.
What? I think in Bloodborne it was less. Like,
Yeah, nothing was oversized particularly.
It was less exaggerated in
What?
Bloodborne.
In Bloodborne, you're supposed to fight with a razor the size of a tree.
It's just a name. It's not actually a razor.
And that's exactly how it looks. Well,
Someone might make a weapon like that if they were living in some weird plague city. that
What
looks
about like in Dark Souls, the like giant men the size of houses? Or, I mean, do they not put you off?
no, I suppose fantasy monsters are fine, but if I'm playing a third-person perspective action game and I cannot even see my character because it's all I see is a weapon supposedly hung on the character's back, and that's it. Nothing else. Maybe footwear. Everything else is hidden behind the weapon. It's just, I don't know. No. There isn't enough immersion in it for me. You know, I need to see the character at least. Possibly understand what they're doing with the weapon.
Whatever, Pavel.
Just expectations.
I don't think you want to see my character, Pavel.
Yeah, your character is a freak.
So it's like basically if somehow it was possible to make Mick Jagger more wizened and leathery, that's
That's a
something
good
what he's looked
description.
like.
He's got excellent lips, your character.
Oh, quality
His lips are brilliant.
and also some neon hot pink lipstick on his forehead.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which was a hilarious moment when you were making that character, when you moved the lipstick off his lips at high speeds.
Why is this possible? Let's not question it, let's just do it.
Let's go with it. Let's run with it. Okay. So that's Monster Hunter World. Let's move on. And Pavel,
Hello.
you are going to tell us about... So this is the Pavel Hammer segment, I believe. But Pavel's gone back to more Games Workshop stuff.
It appears that I talk about Warhammer franchise too much.
War Pavel.
So I've decided to do it again, yes. And in this particular outing, it's a Warhammer of a slightly different kind, although they're all really pretty similar, aren't they? This one is a Diablo game, an isometric... it pains me to say it, but they call it action RPGs. I wouldn't really throw the word RPG that lightly, but fair enough. But yeah, essentially isometric. So if you've played Diablo or any of its clones, this is another one, but it's set in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, which is fairly popular with folks nowadays, and I suppose this game might eventually become rather successful, because it seems like they're making good strides in it. It's still in early access.
Or are you talking about the game? I thought you were talking about 40k. It's like, where's Pavel going with this weird, like, satire about 40k? He's like, oh yeah, this 40k game might catch on in a few years. I was like, this is...
Yeah, 40k has been around for some time.
This is a new direction for Pavel. He's never...
Oh, no. Sorry, 40k is established enough for me not to even attempt to question its supremacy in the hearts of nerds.
I thought you were being ironic.
No, I wouldn't dare, because we might get death threats. Can you send us, please, some death threats? I think you're supposed... We would be a successful podcast if we got some death threats.
We just long for human contact.
So yeah, the game puts you in the shoes of whatever human agent called in. I should also say, sorry, because I've probably failed to do that, there is a title. This game has a title. In this particular case, it's Warhammer 40,000 Inquisitor Martyr. I really like this title because it's so telling. I think there's so many Warhammer games around nowadays that they don't even try to make titles as such. They're just gonna use modular aspects of titles. So if you add Inquisitor to a game set in this particular universe, that probably tells you whom you're playing, and then they might just add Martyr because I suppose it's a religious enough word. I don't really see where the Martyr thing came from, or why you would need multiple nouns that don't really come together to just be in a title. But then again, I had the same problem with Horizon Zero Dawn, so fair enough. So yeah, you're an Inquisitor, which is whatever important person in the 40k universe, and you run around an old cathedral-like ship shooting various heretics, which is, as good a fun as you would have in a Diablo-like game. There is multiple very weak enemies running at you, and you shoot them. In Diablo-like games, I think things just have to be really smooth, really well calculated, really well balanced. Maybe it's Diablo itself. Blizzard tends to do things well when they finally do it, and Diablo 3, Diablo 2 before it, they were the benchmark for this sort of games, and I suppose this particular one will really have to work hard to attempt to reach this level. But it seems to be going well. You have a lot of placeholder items still, as you would in early access, whether it's graphics, whether it's missing audio tracks, whether it's enemies doing silly things or your own character not being able to do certain other actions. But there's been... I had a look at this game about a couple months ago, and there's been steady progress being made. There is a campaign now. You get to play a succession of fairly short and easy missions. There is a story in it which is just what you would expect from 40k, so you meet a small collection of very arrogant, very righteous, very supposedly pious characters who all want to essentially just destroy in the name of the Emperor. I don't feel a lot of, I'm gonna say, there is not much love in me for this particular faction in Warhammer games. The Imperium of Men, or whatever you call it, because
there's so much lore about it as well, and it's all just like everything I've seen is like, these guys are just a bunch of arseholes and everybody loves them.
Everybody loves them, but which is the human faction in all Warhammer 40,000k or 40,000 games. How many K? What? That's a lot of thousands. Is essentially just a bunch of really muscular, clean-shaved Aryan dudes in superpowered armor who just want to kill everybody that's different. So I tend to prefer to play any other faction I can in this universe, but 90% of 40k games are about space marines or humans as such. So, fair enough.
Who are the enemies you're fighting in this?
Just like...
It's just all of them?
Cultists. Yeah.
Is it cult?
So
it's the...
You...
Is it the Chaos?
Yeah, you would... Sorry, the storyline is essentially you find an old ship of whatever type that essentially looks like a cathedral flying through space, which is part, I think, of the lore. I've never really properly read a lot of 40k lore, but there is an established Imperium of Man fully functioning, and there is ships appearing out of nowhere after having sailed through space for millennia, because they started their voyage, before, I suppose, some sort of faster-than-light engines being built or something. So there's been populations of humans living on those ships who have forgotten the Emperor, instead started worshipping other stuff, which is essentially gods of chaos. So just random cultists, let's kill them. That's pretty much that. Diablo-like games are all about your skills being again balanced enough for you to make tactical choices, and just scaling up difficulty, because in whatever normal or hard difficulty, just tends to be just shooting stuff and collecting loot. But you know what? Warhammer 40k games are all about the feel, I suppose, the grungy, grimdark stuff, and they're doing it right. I mean, you run around this derelict ship, and the sound effects are really good already with the heavy whatever step sounds you make, the thudding metal, even the weapons sound right. This franchise has to have a very specific feel, and it seems to be going the right direction. You can pick between 3 different classes, being one of them being just a regular space marine, I think, or something close to it. The other one being a psyker, which is some sort of mage dude in this universe. There is a female character, and because this is a very, very sausage fest franchise, the female character is essentially wearing what looks to be a bulletproof latex suit. So just about what you'd expect from 40k again.
So now it's equal opportunities Aryan fascisms, Aryan space fascism.
Yes, there is Aryan space fascism on multiple genders.
But now women can be Aryan space fascists.
I must say that at least they sort of the consequence, as in, what am I saying, is all the characters, regardless of whether they're male or female or even whoever, they will be equally arrogant and self-righteous, to the point where it actually becomes almost funny when you play this game and you see a few dialogues. It would be refreshing, but I've probably played too many Warhammer games. I should probably step away for a bit. Play something less grimdark, maybe, and less gothic-like.
Is it edgy AF, Pawel?
AF, there's a lot of AF in it. I think the game is aiming at the AF category.
I dread to think what that could be.
No, but in all fairness, it's in terms of game craftsmanship, they're working hard on it.
Okay.
It's very early access still. You'll see plenty of again stuff that still needs doing, but the campaign is already there.
Cool. Who's actually developing this?
Neocore Games.
Right, I don't know if I know them.
Yeah, me neither. Neocore Games. Release date is 31st of August 2017, but that was the first phase of early stage. It's still early stage. And yeah, we'll see where we get.
Alright, cool. So that's... What was the confusing title?
Warhammer Revelations Origins.
Oranges.
Oranges, yes.
Yeah.
Warhammer 40,000, and then you get a big Inquisitor title, and then you get a smaller Martyr subtitle.
Inquisitor.
That's very descriptive, Pawel. Thanks very much. Okay. Right, let's move on. So we are going to do the Retro Games Book Club this week. Hey. And Dave, you've I think the jury's going to be out on this, but you have finished the theme tune. We had a placeholder theme tune last time.
Yep.
Someone's going to be.
So we've not heard this yet, and Dave's going to edit this episode this week.
You're going to love it.
He's going to put this in, and then I think we'll have to sit down as a podcast and discuss Dave's future, I think, after we've heard this.
Well, that's after we've sifted through the hate mail that we've received,
Yeah.
apparently.
So here it is. Here's Dave's theme tune then.
Retro Game. Retro Game. Club. Get ready.
Places where sailors might hang out around here.
Okay, so this week on the Retro Games Book Club, it was my choice. I got randomly picked to do the next one. So I picked Megalomania, which is a game that came out in 1991, and it's something that I remember from like my childhood. I do remember sitting in my brother's bedroom where our Mega Drive or Genesis, whatever you want to call it, depending on where you are in the world, it's where it was kept. It was in my brother's bedroom, and I do remember just sitting on his bed for long periods of time trying to get my very small child's brain to figure this game out and why I kept losing all the time. Now this was originally released on the Amiga, I should say, in 1991, and it came out on other platforms, and so like the Genesis and the Super Nintendo. In North America, it was called Tyrants Fight Through Time.
This is very descriptive.
Which is a weird name to go for.
It's had a number of different box arts as well.
Yeah, no, well, I've got the Mega Drive box art here, and I remember this box art, and it makes absolutely no sense to like.
If you see the Amiga,
the actual game, there is no relevance to it whatsoever.
The Amiga box art is amazing, and then the one for the Mega Drive and Genesis looks like some sort of cyberpunk.
Yeah,
deal.
Like man's brain exploding because of too much data.
Yeah, it looks like it'd be a good film poster, but I'm not sure it really.
Yeah, but it's completely like it makes. There's no correlation there at all with that box art in the game. However, what I will say is that I actually think this game's pretty solid for like a game that came out in 1991. Now, this is. I mean, I'm tempted to say, and I think I may have said this the last time. Or maybe we were chatting to each other off air, but I think this may have been one of the original real-time strategy games. And it's, I mean, I'm looking here at something which says that it predates Dune 2 by a year.
All right, so
I was just going to check
people
that.
say that Dune 2 was.
Oh no, it's definitely before.
Aye.
Before Dune 2.
Now I'm going to let you guys talk about the game itself, right? Because it's something that, like, it's one of these things that every so often I would go back and play because, and I wouldn't play for very long, but it was just because of that nostalgia thing.
Oh, you've talked about this one to me quite a lot. Just like you've definitely got a love for this game.
Yeah, I do. And I mean, I think it is a nostalgia thing, so I want to know what you guys actually think about it. But just to give an overview of what it is, essentially you pick a character at the start of the game. It doesn't matter who you pick. It makes no difference to the game. There are no skills or anything like that, but it's just basically your colour. So you can be the red lady who is, what's her name? Scarlet. Mm-hmm. You can be Scarlet. You can be Oberon, who is a camp king, but he's like yellow. You can be an Italian green guy called Caesar.
That was me.
Or you can be a strange-looking blue guy with puckered lips called Madcap.
He's got a cyber eye.
Yeah, he's supposed to be a psycho of some sort. Now, generally I play as Madcap, mainly because I think his voice in the game is the worst, and he's the person that you control is the only person's voice you won't hear. Never play as the Yellow King guy because his voice is hilarious.
It's the best.
So yeah, you pick that, and then there's a little island thing, and it's split into regions, and you have a number of men. You start the game with 100 men. You can take as many of those men as you want into the island, save some of the men for the other islands that are in the epoch, as they call them, and then you pick where you start your base on the island, and then into the game you go, and you're up against 1, 2, or 3 of the other characters who are always AI control. There's no multiplayer in this game, and you start off in, like, was it 9000 BC or something like that? You've got a little stone base. Your guys are picking up resources in terms of, like, at that time it's like wood or stone, and they'll automatically pick it up. And then you've got a little research thing, so you can research different weapons, you can research different defensive things, you can research repair things for your buildings. You can research those. As you research more stuff, you'll move through time. Your tyrants will fight through time, and the more through time you go, the more sort of different types of buildings you can build, the more resources you can gather. So you can build mines, you can build factories when you get to, like, the sort of industrial age, and you can build labs later on in the game. And you can equip people based on, like, the blueprints that you have researched. So if you research something that needs, like, if you research a spear and it needs 1 wood and half a stone, and you can see how much of that stuff that you're gathering, you can then equip your guys and send them out into the world. And you can just, the object at each level, each island, is to destroy all your opponents. And that's the basics of the game. It's no I'm sure that you guys will come in on this one, but it's not immediately straightforward about how you actually work this game. But
Yeah, I think
Very complex.
I think it's
yeah.
important to describe that you don't move the units individually like
Yeah.
you might do in a real-time strategy.
Yeah, you're
it's-
moving
it's-
armies,
Yeah,
basically.
it's almost like playing a board game. I felt a little bit, and the islands are broken up into squares, zones, and you just move your army from one zone to another, and then they automatically fight if there's other enemies there. So it's not like Dune 2, which came a little bit later, where you were clicking on an individual tank and moving it left a bit, right a bit. So
You
it's
have
a bit
no real control
yeah,
over your.
it's more abstract. It has a sort of abstract feel to it, which is quite unusual. I don't think I've ever played a real-time strategy that's anything like that.
Yeah, that's the thing I find interesting about it. It's got a really interesting like mechanic to how it works, and it's almost like it was like dropped at that stage. Like, oh no, let's do it like the Command and Conquer style with it, or Dune 2 sort of being the prototype of that. But it was like Megalomania is kind of this forgotten way of playing, and as Chris said, I think it's really solid, like how it works, and it's a lot more. There's a lot more depth and complexity in it than you could imagine, just from sort of like looking at the basics of the setup of the game. And yeah, I found it sort of really interesting. Like,
I'm gonna say I think this is because you're an Euro board game person.
possibly, yeah.
And the way mechanics of this game work, it seems to be putting more I suppose weight on researching and equipping than actual tactics. Because there's none. It's more of an industry / research game than actual strategy tactics.
There's resource management is a huge part of the game.
That's a massive
and
part.
you can see Euan's eyes lighting up when he says those words.
I have a particular thing to bring up on that topic, but I want to leave that to the end because it might derail things a little bit. But
Yeah, well, you have to remember when it harks back to as well, and also, boring, dry resource management and wargamey type things were on the PC, certainly, that's where it all started. People took pen and paper war games and immediately made them into computer versions, and it was very similar. If I think about Dune 2, which is a sort of peer to it, yeah, you could move individual units in Dune 2. There was not a great deal of tactical depth in Dune 2.
No.
You built everything that you could and just sent a massive wave of it. Like, that's how I won every level, apart from the very last one, which was about not getting nuked by the stupid fucking missiles, and that was pretty much it. I got to the unit cap every freaking time. Set up your defences, build whatever the most powerful unit is, get to the unit cap, move them one at a freaking time to the other side of the map.
But this is how things work even up to today with RTS.
Well, I'm disappointed to hear that, because
You play StarCraft 2 and you essentially, in a solo game, you develop your base and you wait until you have your unit max, and then you just...
The thing Dune 2 brought was like atmosphere, and the base development was all very atmospheric, and I think that's why people...
And the worms.
Yes, that's why people loved it. It was like your sandcrawler going out and then getting eaten by a worm, and the Mentat screen with their crazy eyebrows and the music, and that's really what people loved about Dune 2, I think. And I think you're right that this sort of style, it was like they were almost like onto something.
Yeah.
But then Dune 2 came along and everyone went nuts for that. I mean, well, although that said, they went on. This is by Sensible Software, who went on to make Cannon Fodder.
Yeah.
Which was massive.
one of my favourite games of all time.
But yeah, this sort of weird curio kind of fell by the wayside.
And it almost feels like an injustice has been done to some extent. Because it really, no, I mean, like, you talk about Pawel, the way RTSs work, and they really haven't changed over time. And I talked on a previous episode about going back and playing Command and Conquer Red Alert, and I really enjoyed them, but I was very quickly aware of the limitations, and I remember it from playing them early on, just the idea always felt it was kind of building the same thing, particularly if you just played like a multiplayer skirmish or something like that. It was always the same sort of way it would go, or you just maybe fixate on a particular unit or something like that you want to use. This game, like, is totally different from that, and the outcomes from different ways of playing it, I've just found, like, no two games that I played really kind of played out the same way. And I didn't actually make it, because I was saying to you yesterday I was gotten on the second epoch. I never actually made it onto the third, but I spent a lot of time playing those ones, and I found that I was more interested in finding out how the game worked and trying different things. One thing I found, like using alliances tactically, became quite interesting. Like there was one thing where I found, there was a guy had his base in the sort of the sector next to me, and the other guy was the other side of him. And I made an alliance with the guy that was in between the middle, and instantly he just got crushed by the other guy, which left it free for me to run in and do my thing.
That's the way alliances should work. Yeah.
Sometimes building up to the later technologies isn't worth it, particularly in those early ones. It's like you're as well just getting in and fighting. In fact, I lost because I spent too much time.
Yes, I was going to bring that up actually. There was a level that I played the other day there, where I spent ages. I went through all the, got up to the sort of, can't remember, it was like 1914 in time, so it was like we were basically a World War I level technology, and just got annihilated by one of the AI controlled players,
like with a
and then went back into that
storage.
island and then just upgraded a couple of times, sent my armies out and crushed everybody. Just you're right, there's sometimes is no point in pissing about in this game.
Aye, and like things like if you go into like an empty sector, your guys will start building a new base.
Build a new base.
That's not always worth doing either, because you start from scratch in that new area, and it's like, can I be bothered building up in this thing when I could just build a really good army and move it through sectors and go to where I need to be?
Yeah. There's one thing the AI does is that the AI will just constantly push out and keep building bases everywhere. And it gets slightly annoying because I kept looking at the map, and there's like my little blue base sitting in the corner of an island somewhere, surrounded by green bases. But the thing is that I think the AI is a little bit. Sometimes it feels like it's being totally unfair. Like they're just like I've played a few games of this where within like 30 seconds of me starting, like I'm being attacked by an AI opponent who has somehow managed to get to the like third tier of the weapons thing with 50 guys or something like that, and you're like, how is this possible?
They start with more guys than you generally. You get to choose.
That's the other thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's all the number of guys you start with affects how fast you go, because it affects it just cascades.
Yes.
So like, even if you do nothing, you generate new guys. And
the
AI does nothing a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And then it ends up with like, so you start with 20 guys and like you do your research and you're like, right, I'm ready to go. I've got my army of 50 now, 50 biplanes, and then there's like 250 like little cavemen with rocks.
Yeah,
because the AI's been like sort of pissing about doing that.
That's what I found on some of the levels, going in and just being an idle, going with really well upgraded guys, but just not having the numbers to take them on.
Yeah, I rushed most until I couldn't. Like that was the first thing I did in every level, was attempted to rush it with like catapults or whatever the cheapest thing was. And I don't think I bothered building another base until the 5th epoch, when I was finally required, because I started running out of minerals.
Yes,
that became more of a thing.
Sorry, can I just ask another question on that topic about the resources and the minerals? How many times have you started on an island to find that the place that you've built your base has got absolutely bugger all in it?
Yeah, it's a weird aspect because it's semi-random as well.
Seems to be.
But yeah, and I would just quit and start again.
Yeah.
Because
I've been doing this a lot as a kid.
Theoretically, you could move to the next square, but you've lost so much tempo by that point that you're as well just quitting and beginning and trying a different start square.
Is there like a finite number of resources in particular things then? Because I that wasn't what I was quite sure about. Certain things seem to be going up, and then I got nowhere with certain.
And also, you can make different things on each square. It's not guaranteed that you can make all the things that are available in that tech level on every square that you get to. That's really annoying. Because you start in a square and then you find out like a little bit down the line, you're like, oh, I can't make the jet planes or whatever. I need to be in I need different minerals. They use a lot more minerals as well, and that's how you get the weird Lancashire guy or Yorkshire guy.
Running out of elements.
Yeah, I think I got that a couple of times, but I don't think I got far enough in the game where it was becoming a real struggle. Because I mean, I built mines, factories and things like that, and I got into again, the resource management. As soon as the factories are introduced, it's a whole other.
It's a whole new thing that you have to deal with. Yeah,
trying to get your head around that it's madness.
you have to actually produce things, so you don't automatically just get given these weapons.
You have to make the weapons and then
you have to make them. Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of weird. It's a bit. I mean, it's a bit contrived, but obviously it was an early game.
Aye.
And I read a bit about it. I don't think they spent a lot of time. They made this game quite quickly.
yeah.
There's some. I don't know where I found it, but there's a bit of history online about this game and the development of it. I've got no idea where I came across it, but it was interesting to read. I also read the manual, the Amiga manual.
Oh yeah, was that enlightening?
It's worth having a look at to remember what games manuals were like.
Oh yeah.
It's got. I mean, it's done by Sensible Software. I don't know if you're familiar with the Sensible company who made Sensible Soccer, Pawel, and many. Well, you know Cannon Fodder.
Cannon Fodder.
Right,
I
so
do
you
know
remember-
soccer games. I
You
tend to
remember
stay away
Cannon
from.
Fodder has a sort of humour to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, all Sensible games were a bit like that, and they had a similar look as well. The manual is weird. It's about 40 pages long.
Oh God.
For one thing. And the first bit of it is just like, there's so much chat in it. There's like jokes and banter and all this nonsense that's in this ridiculously long manual. Just this sort of
It used to be
stupid
part of the
British-
experience back in the day.
totally.
Reading the manual. You buy a game, you sit in the bus, you read the manual.
Yeah.
Well, even I felt like the intro bit in the game, they kind of drag the arse out of it a bit. You're like, why is it taking so long to tell me that a bunch of gods are fighting over a planet? Right, okay. Like they get really into the all these treacherous, and it's like it goes on for quite a while.
Yeah.
But they're British. They were a British based
Yeah, yeah.
company.
Oh yeah. I mean, like all the element names are stupid.
Well, this is
Yeah,
one
yeah.
thing I wanted
Like
to point
tedium.
out.
My favourite one was Moron.
Moron.
My favourite one's Araldite.
Araldite,
based
yeah.
on the glue, and the fact that even the symbol
two-part
is
epoxy.
it's the two things. You've got your hardener and your epoxy.
My favorite thing was the island names. They're
Yes.
just
Oh, yeah,
ridiculous. Like
Although one of them is just called Ibiza.
yes.
Can I just say, I was a wee kid when I played this game originally, and that was before learning this strange language on this island. And I actually, as a kid, I appreciated all the icons. Back in the day, quite a lot of games would actually have graphic user interface in, well, obviously English, and, you know, a poor foreign kid somewhere due east had no idea what he was attempting to play. Whereas in Megalomania, there was the research, window, let's call it, and a few other bits in this game were actually all about just being able to count rather than being able to read, which helped, but there were places obviously where you had no idea what was going on because that's where English was.
Surely the word Araldite is like universal for anybody whose dad has even a passing interest in hardware or anything like DIY. Certainly that's where I knew of it from.
Obviously, not being able to play to read any sort of instruction manual made this game just a constant trial and error thing until you get properly discouraged. Which, when you're a kid, may take a while if there's nothing else to pick. I suppose nowadays you have plenty of distractions around and you just give up if something's too difficult. I'm talking like an old man now. Yeah, sorry. But back in the day, because you only had like 3 games, you had to stick to it. You had no idea what you were doing. You had no idea when you were just losing all the time, and the amount of times I would just try to learn what I'm doing, maybe inventing a bow and arrow, and then suddenly you get a bunch of people teleporting into your square and just annihilating you, killing you off. And you would just start again and try to learn from your mistakes. So I remember Megalomania for me was a grind against just so many mysteries. The concept of this game just wouldn't make it into my head for a long time. I never got past second era anyway. Even figuring took me some time because, you know, a wee child, took me a bit of time to figure out that those were why was the time going backwards? Because, in
just
Polish,
BC.
even BC is different in Polish, so it's what? Something's wrong with time here.
Right, well, we've not got much time left, so has anybody got final thoughts on what they thought about Megalomania? Anything else to add? Any little quirky things that they want to mention?
No, I don't think so.
So it's the Betamax of RTSs, yes? VHS just pushed it away, and
That's
it could have
probably a
been
good
big.
analogy.
VHS pushed it out.
Yeah. No, Pawel's saying it's the Betamax of RTSs.
Yeah, you're right. It's yes, it's not intuitive. If you've played any other video game,
But it could have been grand.
Well, there was that was like a period of time where like people were being very creative with how you played games, and like in Megalomania, I mean, I don't know how they came up with this idea. Like when you think about it, it's a weird idea.
It's fairly complex as well.
Aye, and it's got its complexities and everything. But I don't know. It's like Pawel said, it's almost like just another type of thing came along, just shoved that out of the way.
Well, it's good that we're highlighting it.
Yeah.
This Retro Games Book Club.
Dave, anything else to add?
Yeah, I had a great time playing it.
How far did you get, Dave?
Epoch 6, I think.
Oh, right, cool. So you were well into the modern world.
I had airplanes and jet planes and things, and got to these sort of maps where you had to fly over. They were a pain in the arse.
I remember those.
Because if you messed it up, you would run out of minerals, and then you couldn't even get to the other sections to get more minerals. So
You need like fuel for your planes and stuff.
They just cost so much to make. Planes, you need a lot of araldite to build a jet plane.
Well, I was looking up the uses of araldite earlier on, and jet planes was one of the foremost in its original industrial form.
Jet planes and bazookas.
I had no idea there were jet planes in this game. Never got that far.
No.
Yeah, well, I never got to see it. It goes even further.
I think you end up with like flying saucers and stuff.
I think so. Something like that. It was all in the manual. They kind of spoiled it a bit, but everything was in there. I try not to look at it.
They used to do that a lot in manuals, though. Be like, check out all this stuff that's coming up. Like they would not hide really anything from you because they wanted you, I guess, to actually persevere with the game.
Sorry, Dave. Did you use any nukes?
No, because I didn't quite get far enough.
Didn't quite get that. See, one of my memories of childhood is like just trying to play through that game so you can hear the person screaming that you've been nuked.
This was in 1991, the sort of the tail end of the Cold War.
Oh,
yes,
lovely.
and I'm like sitting there going, "Way nukes!" Okay, right. So that is right. That's by Sensible Software, as we say. Now, I want to just tell just a small anecdote here because as we were talking, I was trying to look up a list of games that Sensible Software did so that I could try and reel them off to Pawel so that we could give him a reminder. Now, it turns out that the Sensible Software did a game in 1995 called Sensible Train Spotting. Which I have never heard of. Right. Now that in itself is funny enough, but and it is actually just it takes place at a railway station and you have to try and tick off numbers as the trains go past.
That's brilliant.
Right. Now, I've gone further down in this page and it says that 8 years later in 2003, another PC games company called Demon Star released another train spotting simulator which was virtually identical to Sensible Train Spotting. So a guy called a former Sensible Software employee, Stuart Campbell, he reacted by buying a full copy of this new game and then making it freely downloadable from his website and challenged them to take legal action against them.
Nice. Sensible.
The Sensible Software are a great bunch of lads.
They really need to release like a retrospective sort of thing, maybe on Steam or something like that.
Yeah.
Just has all the Sensible games.
Well, I had that little Mega Drive, the little Mega Drive box thing that had 3 Sensible Software games in.
I'm telling you right now, I'd pay good money for that right now. To have like a modern, they wouldn't even need to update the graphics, don't care, just make them work on whatever, a PC, console, and have Sensei Soccer, Megalomania, Cannon Fodder, and I want to have a go at Train Spotting.
Did you ever see Sensible World of Soccer?
No.
Oh, that was
that like a management
that was the
thing?
management version of it, and that was something else, by the way.
Right.
They had nearly every country in the world and all the players. Like there's the Hibs team from like 1992 in it or something like that. It's got like Pat McGinley in the team and everything. It's great.
Oh my god, football talk! No!
It's absolutely brilliant.
Who else was in that team?
It was actually a really well done management simulator, by the way.
Jim Leighton?
Jim Leighton, yeah, he was in there. There was a few, like.
Which must be the most frightening game genre ever created.
I think Keith Wright was in it as well.
No!
You want to keep talking about this?
No!
I wish we could continue.
Right, so the next Retro Games Book Club, it will probably be 2 or 3 weeks away before we actually do another one of these. But Euan, it's your pick, so what are you having?
We're going to play Life and Death.
Life and Death.
The classic medical professional because it's not just surgery, it's the entire medical profession simulated in Life and Death. It was on the Atari.
Okay.
It has been sort of set up on there's browser versions using the sort of DOSBox thing, but it's just you can just do it through your browser. So there's various ones. If you search online for Life and Death game, check that one out.
Find that, right? So it's Life and Death, that's been picked.
Yep.
An old Atari game. Okay, that's going to wrap that up for this week. We will do our internet, so if you want to email us, it's firstplayertoken@gmail.com. That's FIRST. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube. We have a PSN community. Those are all First Player Token or the large and unnecessary First Player Token, but Twitter is @1ST Player Token.
Which is once the player token.
Thank you, good. We have Discord if you want to join us there. It's discord.me/firstplayertoken, as in FIRST again. My Twitch username is Unnecessary Chris. I've not been able to do any streaming for about 2.5 weeks now or something. I've just been far too busy. But I am planning on getting back into it. Probably the week that this episode goes out, actually. So hopefully I'll get Hollow Knight, die a few more times in Hollow Knight even. And get back to playing Ultima Underworld because it's the best game ever made. And we are part of the Podnose Network,
UK's leading entertainment podcast network.
Any more news, Euan?
Not at the moment, just the continuing existence of podnose.com. And current moratorium, I think, in place on new podcasts until the summer. So, but there's plenty to check out.
Oh yeah, there are quite a fair few now.
Getting on for about 40 odd different titles on there now. So, worth a look.
Right, cool. So that's podnose.com. Go there, check out all the podcasts that are part of the network, and we will see you next week. And it'll be a video games episode, we're pretty sure. So until then, thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye!
Bye.